What's up, guys? Metal Mondays, episode 8, Cannibal
Hey, my
Corpse.
mic was muted when I was doing that awesome intro. Fuck me.
I heard you.
Yeah, you heard me because my mic wasn't muted to you, it was muted to the world, which is what counts. But anyway, all I was doing was getting all excited about the fact that we're doing yet another episode of Metal Mondays, the weekly show here on MTJ Disorder. And my name is Michael, that's Phil Rock. What episode are we at now? This is episode 8.
8, yes, sir.
Cool. Time really flies, does it not?
Yes, it does.
So how have you been?
Good, good. I got my first day off in like 2 weeks, Sunday. So that felt good. And I watched a bunch of movies and I cleaned the house and made some soup. And I'm back fully recharged. Listened to a lot of Cannibal Corpse, Violence, Unimagined. It was actually a big Friday for metal at large. But today we're going to focus on the Godfather, some of the Godfathers of death metal.
It's
Cannibal
funny you say
Corpse.
that you cleaned your house because I had my house cleaned this week, but by my maid because I'm super suave like that.
Super suave.
But I've just been busy as usual doing all the things I love to do, including streaming live on this channel for all you fine folks. But as you just alluded to, over the weekend, I've been entertaining myself with one thing and one thing only, and that is this latest album from Cannibal Corpse. And so I feel like we move on. Enough bullshit. We don't need it for this week because we got lots to talk about. So starting out with the news, the first article of the day: Cannibal Corpse released an album. It's entitled "Violence Unimagined." Now, I was going to do a quick breakdown of the album, but I want to just touch on that title first because to me, that is a very subdued title for a Cannibal
Yes.
Corpse album.
Yeah.
It's interesting. They're showing us that they've grown up.
But the official artwork for it is not. It's
Oh
one of
no.
the worst.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because it's been banned and by officially I think even by most of the distributors.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's already an alternate version like the version I have on for example on Apple Music is not the actual real version because the real version if you want to show it it's a lady ripping her baby apart. And
It's hard to
other
find it's hard to find that real version. Even like
really?
even the what's it called, the Metal Archives has the picture
Yeah.
of the woman with her mouth like ripped open like a
Yes.
demon. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to maybe talk about your thoughts on the album art for a little bit while I look this up, try to find it.
Yeah. Actually, we'll do a proper intro to the band.
Oh,
Cannibal Corpse.
so you
If
want
you're in the
you want to discuss that later then? Okay, because if that's the case, I would suggest
Yeah.
you, contrary to how we planned this, I suggest you go ahead and then introduce us to the album and give us all the pertinent information while I look this up.
The album,
All right.
the band, you mean?
Yeah. So
Okay.
take her away.
Yes. So of course, Cannibal Corpse. Unless you've been sleeping under a rock, if you're in death metal, you know that they're some of the godfathers of death metal. I mean, often called a part of the big four with Deicide, Death. You know, and basically they've been around since 1988. Uh, from Buffalo, New York, although they moved to Tampa, Florida, where a lot of death metal was being made. In the second part of the 80s, early 90s. This is their 15th LP. It's crazy. These guys have longevity. Every album is good to some extent. They're just they're heroes. They're heroes in the death metal world, and they have a pretty consistent lineup. Obviously, you have Alex Webster on the bass, which is one of the leaders of the band. He does most of the writing, of the lyrics, of the music also. So he's been there since the beginning, as well as Paul Mezerkiewicz, the drummer. Same deal. He's always been very involved in every aspect of the band since '88. Then we have Rob Barrett, who was there from '93 to '97, and then came back in 2005 until now. We have George Corpse Grinder Fisher, obviously the second vocalist of Cannibal Corpse, came in '95. has been there ever since. And finally, we have Eric Rutan, another hero of death metal, obviously of Hate Eternal. He's also been with Morbid Angel before. I didn't know that. Just read that. He's always been a very good producer in the death metal world, and songwriter, and even toured with Cannibal Corpse a lot of tours before. So it was for them, as they say, a very easy replacement to Pat O'Brien, who we might discuss a little later. Another band member who was there for a long time, but is no longer with them anymore. So basically, yeah, Cannibal Corpse, fucking legends. We love him. We couldn't wait to get this album. This is one of the most anticipated album of the year. Violence Unimagined. We're gonna get into the album. For me, overall, I can say I think it fucking rocked. I really love the album overall. There's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about, but I think on the surface, it's a very solid album. What did you think about it?
I'll tell you in a second. Just a quick update on that album artwork. I can't display it either.
No.
Yeah.
Why?
Just looking at the list of platforms that it's censored on, and Twitch is one of them. So. Yeah. Okay. As for the album artwork aside, because I do like the actual artwork, the artwork that.
Describe it for us.
Okay, so if you've seen the album artwork that isn't censored, it's essentially that character that we see. We actually see her now, and she's completely naked, with two completely disemboweled bodies and corpses to her side. But she's also holding a baby that it's implied that she just gave birth to, and she's ripped it into two pieces. And its entrails are hanging out. So that's actually pretty vile, even by Cannibal Corpse standards.
Yeah.
Very, very, very much so. That's it. I'm not. That's it? I don't know if I want to continue getting into details about it. I'm worried I'm gonna get banned or something.
No, it's funny because the like you said, the title of the album is not that gory, but the artwork certainly is. And for me, like I said, just overall, I thought that was a fucking solid album. What about you?
Well, I'm a little afraid because metalheads are incredibly unforgiving when it comes to opinions. And I said this to you off air that I wasn't sure if I wanted to give my 100% true thoughts on it as far as the pedestal that I'm putting it on, but I honestly think it might. I'm gonna do it. It might possibly be my favorite Cannibal Corpse album yet.
Oof! Woo!
Hot take, everyone.
It's a big one. I mean, Cannibal Corpse is just is that kind of band that any group of people could have any top 3 albums and you wouldn't say you're a retard. All the albums have something for different people. This one is I think, even if they have their recipe, is unique in its own way. It has its own sound, obviously, and no man, I think it's like if we would, and maybe we will do that on a later episode where we tier rank the albums, but I think it would be on the top. Certainly for the latest ones they released, I thought it was on the top. Yeah.
You made me just think of something as well as far as what my opinion was there. So my opinion might be tinted right now because of the fact that it's new and I'm excited for it and I've been listening to it nonstop since it was released, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, that emphasizes how good of an album it is, because it means it's already instantly something that I know that I'm gonna be able to rank, and I wasn't instantly turned off and this is boring, or this is not good, or I immediately I'm like, best fucking album I've heard. And that might change now as time passes by, right? But it's a good sign initially that's how I feel about it. That I'm just first song in, I'm like, oh, good. it's gonna be good. The first song plays and you're okay, good. Yeah. It's Cannibal Corpse. It's solid Cannibal Corpse. I can relax now and just enjoy this. Yeah. That's the best thing, honestly, I could say about it.
for me, if I sprint through the album and then I'll break it down even more per track or per aspect.
We'll go through the tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, same as you. First song, Riding Murderous Rampage. What a killer song! Like instantly goes into my, like, if I had to do like a top 30 Cannibal Corpse song, boom! Like I can't get enough of this song. It's got everything we like about him. You know, it's got the crawling riffs, the speed, the heaviness.
Well, and it's instantly out of the gate. It's one of the most violent songs on the album.
I think it's the best vocal performance by George also on the album. That first track, he plays more. He's more refined. I think his voice. He plays more with the lows, the mids, the way he says. He will say the same words a few times in the song, but different way. You know, it's just keep it interesting. You know, I
think that's the theme of this album based on our off-screen discussion. Refined.
Yeah,
everything seems to be nicely fine-tuned about this album.
Oh yes. And your Cannibal Corpse, you can do whatever the fuck you want. It's your 15 LP. They can get whoever they want to mix it. They can make it sound like they want. I haven't read so much on the credits, but I believe that Rutan has a big part of it, even production-wise, because that's his thing, right? Of course, I would think that he had a big say in it. Sounds very Rutan. You know, if you listen to the latest Eight Eternal album, it's refined. It sounds like a tank. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, do you want to continue on listing?
Yeah.
Second track,
another of my favorites on the album. What's the title there? I lost.
Necrogenic Resurrection.
Oof. Which they just released a video for today, and we watched it together on the pre-prod of the show. Amazing video, amazing song. Another Cannibal Corpse classic for me.
Well, and you think about how because there's two videos out now, right? And they were filmed during the pandemic. So when you consider that, like that also makes you really truly respect the craft of the music video in this situation.
Yep.
Because it's not always about the music, right? You can also apply a visual medium to music. And it's a testament that they were able to make something of that quality during the pandemic. So, hats off to you guys.
Yeah.
That being said, they don't feature in it.
Tell me.
All right. So, what you want to continue on with your opinion of that one before I give you mine? Because we kind of digressed there with the music video.
No, but for me, I already said it. Like another killer track, another of my favorites on the track right away. Track 1, track 2, two of my favorites. Amazing song. I love the delivery of George on it. He's personally one of my favorite vocalists, and just the way in the song. I know I told you off air, but the way he says necrogenic resurrection every time in the song, it's fucking brutal, man. I love his delivery. And a great song.
I find it to be sort of different as well. It's probably the most innovative track on the album. It's it's got those very drony moments. Like I don't want to call them breakdowns because everybody always thinks like metalcore breakdowns.
Tempo changes.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not. But it's not just a tempo change. It's like a drastic tempo change. It's really it's quite drony, almost bordering on doom metal a little bit. And I think that's a pretty interesting direction for a song.
I love that.
Otherwise, a very quintessential Cannibal Corpse song.
It makes me feel like a roller coaster. You know, you crash down, and typical Cannibal Corpse, and then whoop. You know, you slow down and then boom, sometimes they just accelerate for a few bar for like one bar, and then they're slow, you know, and then they will come back slow right away. I think it's brilliant composition. I mean, it's the dynamic wise, it keeps it interesting for sure.
And it does have like it's good that you use that roller coaster analogy because it does have that sort of like wavy dynamic, right? Which is most Cannibal Corpse stuff is very, very staccato, very straight edges, very,
Yeah.
very deliberate. But this is a very, very wavy dynamic. And to be honest, I
Right.
feel like Murderous Rampage also has a little bit of that, you know, because it very subtly switches to 6/8 in
Uh-huh.
parts, and it's done. I think it's a tempo change. Sorry, it's a time signature change without a tempo change. So
Hmm.
they end up adapting the groove of those eighth notes to make sure they land on that same tempo as if it was just 4/4 still. And it's something I think Cannibal Corpse is usually. It's in their repertoire. They do that often in their songs, but just
But
utilized in this album specifically with these first two tracks. It creates this very wavy
yeah,
dynamic.
well, two things I'm gonna say. Usually Cannibal Corpse is the fast part and then the slow part and the fast part, like typical death metal, typical metal, you know. But on this album and on this track particularly, also they switch from slow to fast really quickly, which I think is brings an interesting dimension. And another quick thing I'm gonna say is the leads. The leads, you can tell that they're Eric Rutan leads because they're in key. They're not like Kerry King,
No,
all over the place. You know, he's not a shredder. If you compare him to lead guitarist nowadays, but his leads are interesting and they're part of that roller coaster. It's not
yeah.
like, hey, here's the face melting solo. It's more like here's a little interlude,
I
and
find
he's
his
gonna
solos. I find his solos have like almost like a Jimi Hendrix quality to them, where it's not about how many notes he's playing, but how he plays
mm,
the note.
yeah. Yeah, and also the scales that he chooses, you can really tell. I mean, it would bring a certain mood. Without going too deep, when he's diminished or augmented, you feel that, or if he
Yeah.
chooses to stay
Well,
diatonic, is more
I could naturally
coasting.
I could naturally segue us into the next song then, because the next song,
Okay.
Inhumane Harvest, has my favorite solo on the album on it.
it's I like the one on Murderous Rampage, the first song,
Hmm.
because it's the first official solo you hear from Rutan, and it's one I think is the fastest. Not that I'm only about speed, but yeah, the two best solos are these two tracks for me. Human Harvest, yeah, Human Harvest, obviously the lead single of the album. They had the video also for it. Again, third track, another of my favorites on the album. So just to say, this album starts like a fucking. It might be one of the biggest strength of the album and one of the of its weakness also. As we move on, we'll
I
get more
uh
into that.
I like
Yeah.
this song because so it's very hard to distinguish Cannibal Corpse because a lot of, as we said off the top of the hour, a lot of their stuff is just Cannibal Corpse. It's the same stuff. It gets more refined or less refined depending on the album and whatnot, but it's Cannibal Corpse is as advertised. So there's not a lot of ways to differentiate. But this song to me like got me thinking. That's why I started to feel like this was my favorite song within the first few listens of the album, because the more I played through the album, the more this one like I took note of this one, and the more the more thoughts I had about it. And one of the first things I thought about it was like it makes me feel like it's the type of music that serial killers would choose to play at like a serial killer ball. You know, imagine people doing like waltz in ballroom dancing,
Yeah.
but wearing the skin of someone else's face,
with
shit like
chain
that.
with chainsaws in their back. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so
But
and that is like very very clearly there in the composition of the song as well. But it's super waltzy on. I mean, like not even like a 6/8 ticket. It's like very much 1 2 3 1 2 3,
yeah, yeah.
like almost like a stomp your foot like on the one type
Very
rhythm.
very heavy, very heavy. Yeah,
Hmm.
and this one is the one that I'm not the biggest. I won't always follow all the lyrics and everything, but I think it's one of the coolest themes. And also with the video, so Inhumane Harvest, it's like a clinic that they harvest your organs, right? So they get people from car crash or whatever, and they take out the organs or whatever. And The funny thing is, if you're a George Fisher fan, you know that he loves going to Target and he loves sales, and the key phrase in this song is everything must go. It's like a clearance sale, but idiom in harvest of organ. So when he says that, it makes me laugh so much at it, but so brutal within the theme of organ harvesting. So yeah, so far 3 tracks, fucking killer.
Check.
Check. Yeah.
So the next track.
Yes, sir.
We've got. Do you know what's so funny about Cannibal Corpse album? Sorry, this is a little bit of a segue, but like all the mean average of all the like run times is probably 4 minutes or close to.
Oh yeah, I mean 11 tracks, and then I should have mentioned that 11 tracks, 42 minutes. Classic timing for a death metal album. Number of tracks, 3-4 minutes.
That's the main problem with this album. It's not long enough.
Seriously, it goes by. It feels like a 30-minute album. Yeah. Seriously.
So yeah, track 4, 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Condemnation, Contagion.
For me, 4 in 4, bro. I'm not gonna tell you how many favorite tracks I have yet, but the first 4 songs are 4 of my favorites. So Insane, another insane song, and this is a song that Eric Rutan did a guitar playthrough of it. It's so heavy, yet keeping the speed on the guitar. So obviously the riffs are very fast, but the drumming is very heavy, and they layer the fast riff with slower melodies on the second guitar, and it creates some kind of like a zombie mood, but still with the brutality. So it's like you're feeling anxious from the fast guitar, but you're feeling, you feel that zombie tempo from the heavy drums and the eerie melody. Another amazing song, man. Another great composition.
It's funny because it's one of the first ones that, as I look through the list, that blends a little bit into the background. Not that that's an issue. It's just I need more than a weekend to be able to start really taking it all in. Whereas the first 3 songs have absolutely like I say, the more I think about a song, the more I'm of the opinion that I probably enjoy it more. And Condemnation, Contagion kind of just falls a little bit to the wayside, I find. Especially considering I kind of am so I can tell by the way that I'm pushing this. I just want to go on to the next song because the next song is one of my favorites. With Surround, Kill, Devour. I feel like that song is ultimately the best on the album at this point. And I know I've already switched. But I feel like it kind of has the same qualities to it that the song Evisceration Plague has to it, where it's not like it's not super technical or anything. It's not super interesting, but it's got like the chord progressions that are picked. The riffage that is used is just, I think it's comfort food. I think we talk about this probably on every single podcast. It's the first track on the album which I'm like, man, this is just sheer comfort food. It's warmth to my ears.
Cool. Well, this is where we start to part ways a little bit, because for me the first 4 are 4 of my favorites, and when I get to this 5th track, especially compared to the first 4 for me, it's a little bit too comfortable because they surprise me with the new leads of Rutan, the riffs, the crawling riffs, the change of speed, and this one, as you say, is a little bit more.
It's not as technical.
Right, it's a little bit more safe. Not that I need technical, but it's just the mood that they put me in.
Yeah,
they put me in a mood of roller coaster, of eeriness, and this one feels a little too safe for me. But it's still a great death metal song by any.
Question: do you think it stands out, like it belongs on a different album? Would you go that far or no?
Well, no. It feels like it's like any album, unless it's a perfect album. There will be tracks that, to me, and this will sound horribly harsh for how much I love the album, but a little bit more filler. This one feels a little bit more filler to me, meaning that it's probably one of the latest songs. Anyway, if I was in the band, I would think of that song like One of the song maybe
I know
that
what you're
we,
saying. It's probably
yeah,
it's
yeah,
probably
yeah.
one of the ones that where they were like, okay, we've got 10 songs, we wanted 11. Let's just make an 11th song, and so it's not as inspired as the rest of the album. Is what you think?
Right, for me, for my personal
Yeah, and
taste.
I get you there. I do.
Yeah.
I do have to point out that it's probably the least inspired song of the list so far. But I think the next song as well, Ritual Annihilation, kind of falls into that same category.
I agree. So the first four tracks, they blew me off, and I was thinking at this point, if every track is like this, it's gonna be a perfect album. But then for me, track five, track six is a little bit more filler. Although on the track six, I really enjoyed the solo. Again, that's what I will say is that even if some tracks sound a little bit more filler to me, they do have some great aspects. It'll have some great drum fill there, good lead there, a good vocal delivery there. So
The
there's
solos
still
are
some.
great on this album.
Oh man, it's something that I think Cannibal Corpse is not known for. Okay? Cannibal Corpse solo is usually all over the place. So if you don't know them, or like a Slayer, like a Kerry King solo. I mean, but I think all the, maybe not all the solos, but they sound very different. I wouldn't be surprised if they're all Rutan, man. They
Rob
all
Barrett.
Rutan.
Rob Barrett is primarily rhythm guitar. He doesn't really do that much.
Anyway, right. So since Pat O'Brien's departure, it's the, if you think about it, it's become even more interesting to talk about. It's the first album in a long fucking while that you have another lead guitarist.
It's funny though that we should talk about Eric Rutan, because I feel like he is trying to to play the solos that are appropriate for the song. It's not like he's 100% doing his own
Oh
thing.
man, no, and Rutan is his gift. Everyone will say he's a sweetheart to work with. He's a genius to work with, because he's known for being like this, the guy who will serve the song, production wise and composition wise.
So
Rutan is
Alex
not
Webster
known.
probably loves having him on board then.
Yeah, I mean, everyone would love having him on board.
Yeah,
He's that sure. If you want to do a comparison to a hockey player, he's not your star. He's the guy that's always there.
he's the
He's
grinder.
yeah, he's always there. He's always great. He's always solid. He's not great. He's not the shredder. He's not the hero, but he's always like fucking
Oh yeah, okay.
solid. Yeah.
Good analogy. I like the analogy. We
Yeah.
kind of digressed a little bit though. Again, onto the solos there. Is that it for Ritual Annihilation?
Yeah.
All right, so we can move on to track number 7 then. Follow the Blood.
Yes, the
Now,
first real slow number
yep.
of the album, and I love me some Cannibal Corpse slow numbers, like Scorn of Irons, and you talked about Evisceration
Evisceration
Plague.
Plague, yep.
Yeah, so this is in that mood, slow, and this is another of my favorite tracks. I'm now track 7, and I have 5 favorite tracks. So are they gonna keep it up? We'll see. Stay, but yeah, for me, it's a great song, and it's a good time of.
Thank you. Sorry, continue.
Sure. It's a good place for it also. 11 tracks. Track 7, hit them with a slow fucking heavy song. It's well positioned, and also after the 2 more filler tracks, to give that classic Cannibal Corpse slow feel. I thought it's perfect right there. Yeah.
Well, you could almost argue it's kind of filler of its own, but it's still though it's a change in pace to the album,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
it adds to the overall enjoyment of the album, because here we go, we've got a dynamic change. Because I mean, you go back, let's just go back a couple of tracks here. You go back to, I'm pretty sure it's Condemnation Contagion, which was my first kind of my first sort of like meh, and you loved it, but the song just starts like a brick wall, hitting a brick wall, get like a punch in the face, and that's the Cannibal Corpse style. And most songs on any given album will start that way, but then they have these moments where it's funny, because it's I hate to keep bringing up the Beatles all the time, but it's like this is why when you say the Beatles did so much for music, this is what people really mean. It's you go through a Beatles album, you've always got the crowd pleasers and the pop songs and stuff, right? The I love my girl, all that sort of shit, and then you have a change in pace and direction, and all of a sudden it's a song that George Harrison wrote, and it's like completely different sound, completely different content of the lyrics, and I feel like that's Cannibal Corpse doing this themselves, and they do it on a lot of their albums.
That's fucking interesting, Michael. That's to me, that's what in the end is an ingredient that will make a perfect album. You know, you need your fast song, you need your mid tempo song, a slower song, one with more
like a Yesterday.
One more experimental, maybe, you know, one more dark, and you know, you got all these like food. You know, you got your taters, you got your steak, your salad, you got your dessert. You know, you want a variety of things. And if it's done well, every track stands out. Well, that's a Beatles album. We're clear on that. Stevie Ray Vaughan is clear on that on the chat also. You know, Beatles. We're the only metalheads to talk about Beatles.
I don't think so.
Well, I that much I think, but we'll digress. It's a good place for this 7th track to put the first real slow song. Yeah.
Well, in Bound and Burned, the next track on the album is actually another one of my favorites, and it's kind of this whole section of the album is pretty dynamic and almost has the sort of like rock opera, metal opera feel to it, like the telling of a story, and this is the second act of a story. Because Bound and Burned, it's not a slower song like Follow the Blood, but it has it still has a different dynamic to the first 5-6 songs of the album.
The first 7, it's the first one that I wrote as notes mid tempo. So the others are, you know, either all fast or fast and slow or slow. Yeah. This one is the first like actual you know, mid tempo song. To me, it's one of my side tracks, and I prefer to reveal it now. My 5 favorite tracks are past in the album. The album On the Way Out is a little bit more. How can I say? It didn't get me as excited. So for me, the first 4 tracks, the past track, the 7th track are my favorite 5 tracks, and this one kind of puts me on the way out. It's one of my side tracks. I do like it, but it's not a track that I will, you know, listen, you know, individually often. Let's put it that.
Oh, not me. I will be.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get together.
Follow the Blood probably would be though too as well. I think everything on here, even Condemnation, Contagion. I think all these songs I could listen to, because the next song on the album, Slowly Sawn, is another one. Like it's one of the shorter songs, which is funny because there's 2 short ones in a row right here. But it's one of the shorter songs. But it's also just again, I feel like if you've got the lull in the set, this is the calm before the storm. Is this song?
Yeah, and it's called Slowly Sawn. Slowly, you know, it's in the title. It's another slow I wrote. That's what I wrote down. It's I think on the album, there's actually 2 slow songs, the 7th track and this one.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because this song, when I was first listening to it on Friday night, I thought it said Slowly Sewn, and I was like, oh, that's like the most non-Cannibal Corpse name ever. And I kept thinking it was called Slowly Sewn until I listened to it this morning. And I was like, because I was starting to do some more research for the show tonight, and I was looking up on Wikipedia and whatnot, and I was reading, and it's like obviously bigger text than on your screen. I was like, Slowly Sawn, and immediately I just was like, oh, okay, all right. So no, totally appropriate Cannibal Corpse sounding track. Yeah. Enough about the track though, but the song, if you, it still stands on its own from Follow the Blood. It's a slow one, but it's also, I think it's another waltzy song. I'd have to listen to it again and take note of the tempo, but and its entire signature. But I think it's another kind of like Amon Amarth use that to make slower but very urgent sounding songs, to use a slower kind of 6/8 pattern. It's not quite a waltz. It's just slow tempoed 6/8.
Right. But just to talk a little bit more about slow songs, like for me, I some of my favorite death metal songs ever are slow on the slow side are by Cannibal Corpse.
Oh
I
yeah.
already said Scourge of Irons and Evisceration Plague. These two are to me are the most heavy, slow death metal songs that you can write. And I was so eager to see if they were gonna give me another one on this. They didn't 100%, but I still get my fix from track 7 and 9.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah, yeah.
But then this is what Cannibal Corpse are all about, because immediately we run out the gates into track 10,
Yeah.
into the song Over Torture, which
Right.
to me is the next most it's the second most violent song on the album, and it's the kind of song that you just know if you're watching in a small auditorium like Starlight Room and you're up on the balcony looking down on the pit, you'd see that the pit would have been more subdued for the last 4 or 5 songs, and all of a sudden this song hits and everything just erupts and everything would just start shaking, people start falling off the balconies and stuff. That's the type of song that Over Torture is for me, and it's just again, to me, that's the quintessential Cannibal Corpse.
And it's by far the shortest song. So this one is 2 minutes 28.
Yes.
And the second shortest cut, I think is here 3 minutes 3:06.
Yeah,
and then they're all in the 3.5 up to 4 minutes. So this is the really fast aggressive number. This is, if you know the band Skullsplitter, our band, this is their Skullsplitter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So our song Skullsplitter is like that kind of number, like just fast in your fucking face. We need a circle pit now. You play this.
Yeah.
It's like a tool. We're talking about tools. We're talking about ingredients. That song is that track for you. So if you like fast stuff, obviously if you come from a punk background, grindcore, whatever you like, yeah, this is your song.
This is another song where you really notice George Fisher's importance in the group. Because we were talking in our preliminary discussion about how it's interesting. We'll get into this when we go over all the pertinent information. But he's just kind of a lapdog, right? He just does what he's supposed to do. He comes and sings. He's not part of the composition process. He just sings. But so he gets understated from time to time. But this song is just like, it really shows you, because Murderous Rampage was where you pointed this out, which is the first song, which is the other really violent song. But these two songs together really kind of signify how important he is to the band. He's just so appropriate. Like the way that he screams along with the rhythm of the song is like no other singer does that.
Right.
It's what I was going for. Again, another shameless plug with the Skullsplitter song. It's what I was going for with the rewrite of the Dumpster Fire lyrics. Right.
Yeah.
And it's something that you really get to experience in these super fast, deliberate, violent Cannibal Corpse songs.
Well, yeah, not to go too far on this, but I remember when I was with you recording Dumpster Fire, and you were delivering these vocals, and they really remind me of George, because it's kind of syncopated, but yet you still hear what he's saying. Again, okay, it's death metal, but if you put them on the scale there, it's on the more audible singer, and I like that. About George. For me, again, as far as a fast Cannibal Corpse song, it's to me it's less inspired than other really fast Cannibal Corpse song, including the very first he was on. The first song on Vile, I think, is called Devoured by Vermin. And it's just so fast, and but this song brings back to like why we like George, like you said, it's kind of his highlight. And finally, last track.
We can move on to drumroll. Oh, whoops! I got the wrong tab up. My bad. Cerements. Is that how I pronounce that? Cerements of the Flayed.
Yes, because he says it in the song.
Yes, yeah. That's funny that you point that out, because this is the first song where I really noticed all the lyrics.
Of the Flayed. Mm-hmm. What is a cerement?
I'm looking it up right now.
Oh, thanks.
Waxed cloth for wrapping a corpse.
Cerements of the Flayed.
Yeah. So
Um,
that's great, perfect.
so I already spilled the beans by saying that my five favorite tracks are past, but to me, as a closer, is a little bit on the weak side.
Yeah.
I would have. It's a slow number. It's the third slow song. I would
Hmm.
have liked
Mid tempo.
mid-tempo mint. I would have liked something. It can end with a slow song, but it's really got a marquee. I like an album that finishes and like wow, because the end is
Yeah.
as important as the beginning for me.
Do you know
And
what's sad though about that? Because just a thought that I had actually the last time I listened to it before I came in today, I was just driving around thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? What's really like a shame? I bet they think this is the best song they wrote on this album. I
perhaps.
get that feeling that this is like this is the baby of this album.
Oh, really?
This is the youngest born of this album. This was the one they're protective of. You know how bands are wont to do to kind of, as you say, save the best for last, right?
Hmm.
I get the impression that that's what they were going for with this song, and
Right.
that's why I'm a little bit torn with it. I'm kind of a little bit on the fence because whilst you're right, it's if you're gonna end an album with a slower song or a mid-tempo song, then it's got to be the right song, and I just think that's where the problem lies. It wasn't the right song.
Right. I agree. And to me, like if I when I look in retrospective, and because I listen to it a lot, uh, it's funny how my favorite four tracks are the first four, basically,
Mhm.
and after that is like, it's on the way out already, for me.
That what
So
the whole album for me was kind of like a roller coaster. That's where I thought you were going
yeah,
with that analogy,
yeah,
but because you were using the roller coaster to describe necrogenic resurrection and
yeah,
inhumane harvest, and I was going to point out, I was like, yeah, that's kind of the theme of this album. I think
yeah.
it feels thematically intentional to be a very up and down sort of album, like highs and
Hmm.
lows, lots of highs and lows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which again is
So,
something I feel that's very prevalent with Cannibal Corpse music, but it just feels a little bit more deliberate.
right. So there you have it. 11 tracks. So for me, I have a clear five favorites. For you?
I can keep up with five, sure. Because I like the vast majority of them are just like great songs. There's only maybe one that loses me, and that's Condemnation,
But
Contagion.
what are your five
My
favorites?
five favorites would be in no particular order: Inhumane Harvest, Murderous Rampage, Surround, Kill, Devour, Follow the Blood,
Yeah.
and Bound and Burned. That's five, right?
Yep. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's funny as well. Um, that's two of those are Webster songs as far as music is concerned.
Well, you make me want to segue into something else by talking
Well,
Webster.
yes, we can come back. Hey, this is my channel, bro. We can do whatever we want, yo. There's no format
All
on this one.
right.
We'll come back to your five favorites if you want to tell us about Alex Webster right now.
Yeah, because I love me, Alex Webster, in every project he's ever been. And this is something I miss on the album, man. I hear no slaps. I hear okay. I don't want a bass solo. Don't get me wrong. I don't want that. I don't even need to hear the. But I love the Cannibal Corpse tracks where you do feel the presence of the bass. You don't hear bass on that album. You don't hear a single fucking note. It's all up. It's all the guitars.
Well,
For
we
me,
can really delve into that when we talk about the production because I have a thing or two to say about bass.
but especially, yeah, okay. Well, for me, I mean, and you're far more advanced in the producing than me. But all I'm gonna say is I could have used more Alex Webster because on this album I don't feel his presence. I don't feel the individual. I don't feel, it doesn't. Again, it doesn't mean to be like Hammer Smash Face where you just hear the bass for 15 seconds, but a little slap here and there, or a little part where the guitar stops and the bass drones or something would have been nice. Not that
There
it's
isn't
that you
anything at all, is
yeah.
there?
Zero.
No.
And some, because I do different kinds of listens. One is individual performances, and we'll talk about the other performances. But to me, on this album, it's like the one that you feel the less, and usually is the one that you're supposed to feel the most, because he's a fucking genius on bass. Yeah. We don't hear him.
Yeah, it's something I actually hadn't considered, right? But you make a good point. I hadn't realized there's like no little bass ditties or anything at all.
Zero.
And even because it also, this is I did think of, but we'll get into this when we start talking about production. So I'll save that for now. Now let's do a loop the loop and come back now to your top 5 songs.
So yeah, I mentioned it a few times. The first 4 tracks, and the first slow number, which is the track 7. So for me, Murderous Rampage, the first track, Necrogenic Resurrection, the video that was out today, Inhumane Harvest, the first single in the video that was out, Condemnation, Contagion, the video that Rutan did a playthrough. So already, three out of 4 songs that they choose to promote. And usually my favorites are not, especially the singles, I would say 50-50, because usually the bands know their shit. They know what they want to put forth. And for me, yeah, so the first 4 tracks, and then the first slow one is Follow the Blood. Yeah, these are my 5.
That's funny.
5 tracks.
3 in common.
And it's hard. Oh wow, 3 common. And it's hard just to finish. It's hard for me to say my favorite one, but I have to say Murderous Rampage, because it's the first one, and every time I press play, I'm like, oh yes. Yeah. And that's what keeps me coming back, because even though there's a few filler tracks, I'm so eager to start it again that, even if the last few tracks are not my favorites, when I start the album again, I'm like, yes.
It's very cool. Very cool though that we both picked 3 of the same in our top 5. And just an interesting point, I think Murderous Rampage is going to be the first playthrough that's going to be the first song I practice. Like I try to figure out how to play it. Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah. I need to get a guitar that's in that tuning. However, I don't have one handy right now.
I think that they're in like A or A flat, man. They've become very low. We'll have to check that. But I know that lately they've been tuned very low.
So this article doesn't say, but let me have a look at the Metal Archives article, see if there's any information on there. Yeah, Metal Archives actually didn't help me as much.
Continue your top 5. I'll try to find it.
I gave him a top 5.
You gave your top 5?
I gave my top 5. Then you segued and talked about Alex Webster, and then we swung back and talked about your top 5.
Oh fuck! Sorry about that. So the three common were Murderous Rampage.
Yep.
Inhumane Harvest.
Yep. And Follow the Blood.
And Follow the Blood. Yeah. Cool.
And my other 2 that I picked that were separate.
Surround, Kill, Devour.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And your other one?
And Slowly Sawn.
Slowly Sawn. Okay,
cool. No. Sorry, Bound and Burned. Sorry.
Bound and Burned. Yeah, Bound and Burned is. I told you before the show. If my 6th track would have been Bound and Burned, so it's like one of my side tracks. So I mean, I think we're pretty excited about the album. We listen to it a lot. We still will listen to it a lot.
Trevor pointed out that it's either B or A. So you said A flat, A sharp. Right?
No, A flat. There's songs that they are in drop A flat, so they would be actually in B flat standard usually. So they're
not in drop.
Yeah, no, they're not in drop. No, they're in Scourge of Irons. They're in standard A flat.
Okay.
Can you imagine that? But I don't. But and a lot of and a lot of other songs are in standard A. B. Trevor, I'm not sure. I think the standard B was like maybe 15 years ago. I'm kidding. Just because the bands always go down in tuning, But they're like an A standard, very low stuff. What else? Where are we going now?
Well, let's go to our sort of like criteria for rating and discuss each of those points. Composition. Is there anything of note in the composition of this album for you?
Yes. 2 things. We already kind of mentioned them. The first one is more tempo changes, more care of the dynamics in the tempo changes. And this is something even though it's their 15th LP, I'd like them to explore on the 16th. Like more slow, fast, but in the same song, and sometimes in the same 4 bars. Slow, 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 da, 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 slow, 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 slow. Da, da, da. I like that.
Yeah.
That kind of, dude, what the fuck's happening? Like someone just threw something at you. So that's the first one. Composition wise, the second one is the influence of Eric Rutan. I can feel it really, especially in the leads. The leads are a lot more. They serve the song a lot more. They're in scale. When like I said, when he chooses a scale, he chooses that scale based on the chord progression and on the mood he wants to make you feel. There's also use of.
Okay, can I interrupt for a second?
Just to finish, because it's interesting on the leads, he uses octaviers and harmonizers, which is something we didn't see Cannibal Corpse use a lot. So basically, it's a pedal, it's an effect which doubles your notes, and he uses that. Yeah.
So
for effect.
What I wanted to just interject there is relevant to your discussion in regards to Rutan. So the thing that I noticed about the composition is that there's a lot of deliberately composed sections in this. Where what I mean by that is Cannibal Corpse is always, in my opinion, they're a riff band. They're basically like, here, this is my new riff, and then everyone figures it out together, and you can see that in the composition. Whereas this feels like they were really intent on making sure that there was a lot of accenting going on and complementing from each section of the band.
Yeah.
Like there are moments, for instance, like more often than not, you'll find like if there's a little guitar riff, the drums will go, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
That's typical Cannibal Corpse. It's like, well, what are you playing? Show me what you're playing. Okay, then I'll play along with that. Whereas this, they were like, show me what you're playing. Okay, well, I suggest you play this to this so that it accents this. There's a lot more of that, and I want to know how much of that you think is actually incumbent on Eric Rutan.
I think more, and than before. And I actually realized it watching the song of his playthrough, which is Condemnation Contagion, because you see him play his fast riff and you absolutely hear another melody on top or a slower riff on top, which these two riff noodle together, they interweave each other, and you really realize it because you see him play so fast, but yet the feeling of the song is slow. So that's something, like you said, on
I'm glad I wasn't the only one who realized that.
But that's a producer thing, and even in hip hop producing and other styles, you will have some instruments going fast, or some instruments going slow, some instruments going in and out. I feel like there's more production touch on the composition. Now, I'm not talking sound, I'm not talking mix. Strictly composition, there's more attention to detail there.
Yeah.
Refined.
It's more refined, but it's also now contrary to what my original opinion on this. It is the one innovative thing about this album. There is some innovation here, and I think it's just it feels like they were more cognizant of how to accent each other. So they were more cognizant of actually being a little bit more theoretical with the composition.
Right.
It feels that way.
So how much do you give for composition?
Well, we'll go through those things.
Okay, I thought that was what you.
No. You didn't give me the numbers. We'll discuss it, and then we'll give the numbers.
Okay.
Because remember, our numbers might change. My composition number hasn't. Yeah. So as far as production now, this is the real meat for me because I'm a producer. So
I'm so sorry. To complete composition, though, I have to say the other part on the riff writing, even though I like the synergy of the two guitars, I think there's a little lack of $1 million riffage on there. I had to say it.
Yeah, sure, I can see that. It's almost like they've already used all of their skill set, and so they concentrated too much on time signatures and tempo changes, and didn't really give the love and attention to the riff writing.
Exactly.
I could see that.
I'm sorry, I had to say it.
So production. Now,
Yes.
swinging back to what you were saying about Alex Webster, it's not just Alex Webster as a player, it's the bass frequencies. They're very interesting on this album. It's a very muddy sounding album to me, very dirty sounding. I think that's by intention, by design, because it doesn't sound like harsh or anything. It doesn't sound or mucky or murky. When I say dirty and muddy, I mean like it's got lots of low end and lots of 200 to 300 hertz, and as a result, the bass instruments themselves get lost. They get mixed up and muddled. There's not a lot of definition in the kick drum. There's not a lot of definition in the bass guitar, which is why you don't get all that slap and twang that you usually hear from Webster. So it's a very overall a very muddy sounding album, but I think it's intentionally done. And what I mean by that is that it's, like I said, the quality sounds great. You can tell that this was a good, decent quality recording, but you can also tell that they mixed it purposely to maybe they were trying to recapture their vintage sound from the late 80s, early 90s, but they ended up kind of not really doing that. They ended up just creating a very unique sounding album, because it does sound very different from anything they've put out. You use Evisceration Plague again as an example. That is a very clear sounding mix. Everything on that album has its place.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell with this. It sounds rough. It sounds like we're listening almost to a live setup.
Yeah, for me, I agree with what you say, but if I put it on a spectrum, if I put it on the Cannibal Corpse spectrum of mixes, I agree with you 100%. If we put it on the spectrum of how death metal is mixed these days, it's still it sounds very polished, very refined mix.
That's not disagreeing. I obviously not getting my point across properly. It's good. It's good. It's just very rough. It's very rough and muddy. But it's intentionally done that way. So let's put it this way: if that's what their intention was, then they succeeded. So that's a good thing.
But still, like I was gonna say, this doesn't change what I was gonna say. The most of the bands go for rougher than that, and sometimes so rough that people don't get past the first track. So I'm a lot into the cavernous death metal bands, like the Finland death metal kind of style, or if you in American like Incantation, where it's very like it sounds like it comes from a cavern on the other street.
I get you. Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even know what the fuck the drum's doing, like that kind of mudiness.
But see, that's just like bad. That's poor use of that sound.
Well, that's the aesthetic. We can talk about it for a full episode, but I know what you're saying. As far as a Cannibal Corpse album, it's money on the low end frequencies, and you saying it making me realize it more.
Okay, well let me see if I can explain a little better then. So there's a difference between doing something intentionally and unintentionally in this regard. So like, let's say for instance, you've got like a cheap multi-track recorder, 16-track Zoom or something, and a bunch of cheap microphones, and you're in someone's basement, and you record your album, and what you've tracked, what you've recorded is already muddy and already off on a bad step. There's no dynamics to it. There's no diversity to the EQ or anything like that. Everything sounds flat and dead and muddy. Then when you get to the mixing stage, it doesn't matter what you do. You're working already from a point of failure. That's not what you couldn't get the best mixing or mastering guys in the world to fix it, right? This is not what's happened in this situation. What's happened in this situation is they've got amazing recordings. They've got immaculate recordings. They've got everything sounding exactly how they want it to sound in the microphone first, and then they've mixed it. They've gone back and they've mixed in. So if you've got like really horrible muddy frequencies, right? You can't get that out of there like 100%. Because if let's say for instance your microphone and your kick drum's picking up far too much like of the 50 to 60 hertz range and picking up way too much of the 200 to 250, you start scooping that out. You're also going to start scooping out the good stuff like the 100 hertz and the 110, and so what Cannibal Corpse have done with this album, from what I'm hearing, is they've got amazing sounding recordings raw, so that when they mix it, they can actually like bring in the best of the worst, as it were.
Okay. But it's true when you say that we don't hear a decent, like a stand apart kick. You know, usually you hear that. You know that I don't know which on the frequency range. Where
I have a theory
where the hammer is, but you don't hear that hammer hitting the skin. You know, you don't hear.
I have a theory. I think this album, production wise, and it's probably from a band. It comes from the band first before it becomes from any producers or anyone who was involved in the in the crew or anything. I think they wanted to make sure that the guitars and the vocals stood out the most. I think it's by design. I really do.
And they do. This album is all guitar.
Tone is great.
This album is all guitar and voice. We already said it. Like when Webster is not there, we don't hear the kick drum. And to go back to our past episode where we were talking a little bit about Alex, the drummer, and Paul, and it was supposed to be one of his most challenged, you know, his most high-profile drum playing. I don't hear it, probably because of the mix.
Yeah,
he doesn't stand out to me. What stands out this album is really the vocals and the guitars, 100%.
Anything else on production?
But I still like that sound a lot.
So presentation wise, we don't need to go into too much depth on this, but what do you think of the way that the album's been released, as far as singles, videos are concerned, marketing, etc.?
You know what? The first thing is that that artwork. If we go back to that art, if we go back to that artwork. I think that Cannibal Corpse should have done artwork that is brutal and gory without being cartoony, because it's still cartoony, right? Now they have two styles. Like 80% of their artwork is cartoony, and the 20% is nondescript, like the bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They need something in between that. You know, something a little more eerie, something a little more real. Because I feel like it would you know, for their 15th album, it would have made marketing wise would have made a better stance, you know, like but the fact that they went with the cheap cartoon baby ripped apart, I don't enjoy it too much. But the singles, we said it, but the two singles they chose, including the one from today, plus the playthrough, these three tracks are three of my favorites, you know, of the album. So they definitely nailed that.
I'd like to just quickly point out, I've got the censored version of the album art up on the stream now, and even looking at that, you can understand that it's a Cannibal Corpse album. But I just wanted to say something about the artwork. I think, given that you know how hypersensitive the world is at the moment, like you can't say anything, right? Like I think a band like Cannibal Corpse they honestly when they're thinking about this, what they're gonna do, they're gonna we're gonna pay for this, and it could get completely censored and pulled off shelves and whatnot. But they've had to deal with that their entire careers, right? So that's important to point out. However, with the extra hypersensitivity that we have in the world today, I feel like they probably they were just like, fuck it, let's just see what let's see what we can get away with. Because the whole ripped up baby imagery is like you're just flirting with disaster there. You know it's gonna get censored.
But it's like, to me, what I'm saying is that they make it cartoony so that they can make it as gory as they want. It's like their excuse.
That's the style, though. That's the style. I understand. So
I need something else.
Yeah.
Personally,
I was talking in regards to the content of like the subject of the artwork.
Yeah.
But as far as the style's concerned, I agree with you. I'm there.
But as far as art piece is concerned, I prefer the edited version.
Mm-hmm.
as far as an art piece, I like the mouth open like this. Yeah, I think it's if they were to change the tones to look a little bit more real, because this doesn't shock anybody, right? In 2021,
No.
this doesn't shock any, no. So you take that, but you make it with a real person, with real lights and real makeup. It would have been awesome.
It's important. I feel like it's important to note and mention here that the actual the censored version of the art of the face, right? That is that is a separate piece of artwork.
Yeah, it is.
Which means they had it already prepared, knowing full well the first piece was probably going to get censored.
So that's just the artwork. For the rest of the presentation,
I wanted to agree with you on the choices for the singles. Like,
cool.
I was actually, I didn't know that another music video had been released, and when you told me which one it was, I was like, oh, of course it's that, because that was the one I've been thinking all day. It's probably my favorite song on the album.
And I got to rewatch it because we watched it for the first time and the only time together before the show. I think it might be one of my favorite Cannibal Corpse video, man. I love the tone of it.
Well, it's a common theme with Cannibal Corpse videos to have this sort of like sterility, like this, like all the imagery and the gore is underneath the surface. So you usually like it starts out with like this like suburban family in a house, and they're getting ready for a marriage and going to a wedding and whatnot, and it's all lovely and clean and sterile, and there's white stuff everywhere, like everything's beautiful, and then all of a sudden
suburbia,
all of a sudden throats are getting slit and fucking jaws are getting knives stabbed through them, and the gore comes out from underneath, and that's a common thing I find with Cannibal Corpse's videos. But
if we compare both videos, like this one and the other one for Unimagined Harvest, I much prefer this one, because this one, like you said, has even more of that sterility. The other one is just I don't know if you saw it, but it's basically just they filmed that in an empty McDonald's, pretty much. I'm just saying, like, it's a nondescript inside a building and organs being removed of someone. It's like it's very
the two extremes.
Yeah, that's the B movie gore video, and it's a fun one, but it's not one that I want to rewatch. But the latest one we just talked about, I suck with titles. Necrogenic Resurrection, it's great. So presentation, the song titles on the album, and the other thing we can say about presentation, I think they are typical.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting too as well, because it's it kind of the music video matches the content of the song,
right?
Which is very difficult to do with that kind of imagery, and also most bands don't anyway, because they want it to stand on its own. But I feel like it was a good idea, a good call to make a music video that really matches the content of the lyrics, because there's no shows and there's going to be no promotional tour or anything. So it's kind of like, again, harkening back to the Beatles and the Ed Sullivan Show, and how they started sending music videos out instead of going on tours. Maybe that's the direction we're heading right now with the pandemic.
The only extra effort I can think of that they could have put on presentation is because you see every song is separate. There's not a not that I need a concept album, but the titles could have worked a little bit more towards one direction. I feel like Evisceration Plague was more towards one direction. Torture also. Yeah, there's like a theme. This one has no theme. It's just like gore this way, that way, this way, that, which is fine. Sometimes you need an album like this. It's not a bad thing. I'm just trying to really think of presentation as a whole.
It might be again with this trend of trying to make sure you do old school, like reward the old school fans and do something that's a little bit more old school. It comes through in the mix. It comes through in the composition a little bit. Probably comes through in the album titles as well. Because
I agree.
You go back to like Butchered at Birth and whatnot. Like that doesn't have the same level of thematics as Evisceration Plague did.
Yeah, I agree.
And I see we've only got 2 more categories to look at here, but I don't think they matter. We did our next 2 categories are Corpse Meter, which just when we do start doing our rankings, what we mean by Corpse Meter is how it stands as a Cannibal Corpse album, and then the Death Metal Meter, how it stands as a death metal album. Before we move on to that, I kind of want to just go over some footnotes and pertinent information on the albums in preparation for our rankings. So on Encyclopedia Metallum, we have an average rating of 87%.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
We also have Metal Injection. Have given it a clean 9 out of 10.
Wow. Okay. I didn't want to look at reviews before we did the show.
That's no me neither. That's why I'm. That's usually I feel like you'd put that kind of footnote at the beginning, but it's good to have it here at the end because I wanted us to not have our opinions changed because it sees because now we're going to do our rankings, which we also we did our rankings. We prepared them off the stream before we went, so we knew this before. But so as far as the album's concerned, we just a couple of little details on personnel here. Shit, I'm lost here. 1 second. I'm going to use Wikipedia because Wikipedia honestly has more information than the Metal Archives. So we've got on drums, we have the infamous Paul Mazurkiewicz. On bass guitar, we got Alex Webster. Rob Barrett on lead and rhythm guitar. So there you go. He must have put some leads in there as well. Introducing Eric Rutan on guitar and then George Corpse Grinder Fisher on vocals. As far as credits are concerned, Murderous Rampage is lyrics by Mazurkiewicz and music by Barrett. Necrogenic Resurrection, lyrics by Webster, music by Webster. Inhumane Harvest, lyrics by Barrett, music by Barrett. Condemnation Contagion, lyrics Rutan. That's interesting. And music, and music Rutan. Surround, Kill, Devour, Webster. That's why that's my favorite, honestly. Ritual Annihilation, Rutan. Lyrics, music. Followed by Blood is a Barrett. It doesn't look like there's any collaborations. There's only one collaboration on this album, and it's the last song. Bound and Burned.
Pandemic, huh?
Yeah, Bound and Burned is Barrett. Slowly Sawn, Webster. Overture, Rutan, and then Cerements of the Flayed is it's a Mazurkiewicz and Webster collaboration.
Well, it's pretty mingled all over the place, right? It's these two, then these two, then these two. It's there's something from everyone except George, pretty much.
Yeah, and I don't think George cares one. I don't think he gives two shits.
You said he sings, but he also do another very important thing. He fronts the fucking train, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. He's the face. We love him. Everyone loves him. And yeah.
All right, so let's go through our rankings then. So we based it on those 5 criteria, as I said: composition, production, presentation, corpse meter, and death metal meter. So Phil, why don't you tell me, out of 10, what do you give the composition of Violence Unimagined? Unimagined. I wanted to say unimagination. That's not even a word. Violence Unimagined. Sorry, composition 10 out of 10.
I give it 8 because I love the new interweaving riff thing that they're doing a little more, but I still miss some $1 million riffs on it. So a solid 8, I think, to me represents.
I give it a 9.
Oh, nice.
I think it's not just excellent; it's near perfect.
Wow. Cool.
It's funny because we add in the corpse meter death metal bracket as well, but I just think, as far as the composition's concerned, it as a death metal album, it's near perfect.
Stevie Ray Vaughan asked, "How does it sound backwards?"
Yeah, backwards masking is not a thing anymore. Well,
next category.
We could give it a try. Production.
So for me, who's a newbie on recording metal, I give it a 9 out of 10 because even though we talked about we're missing some bass and some kick, I love the guitar tone. I love the vocals. I think it sounds very aggressive, and I love it.
Oh, we're losing you. We're losing you, Phil. Give your internet a chance to buffer.
1 2.
Okay, there we go. So
we're back.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a quick question though on your production there, and you do agree that some of the things like the kick drum and the bass we were talking about are by design. You do agree that that's probably intentional?
Oh, that's why I give it a 9 out of 10. Because
and that's why I might have changed mine.
I love the overall tone of, we're gonna give you guitars and vocals on this one. Fuck y'all is gonna kick ass. You know?
I think I've changed my rating on that one. It was a 7. It's now gone up to a 7.5.
All right.
So
Okay.
that would be a safe 7, meaning a 7 out of 10 is not a bad rating. It's a good rating. 7.5
Right.
just puts it up a little bit. Not quite excellent in my opinion, because I do feel that it was a bit of a bad decision to do that, but
Okay.
I think it affects it. It would be better if we could hear that kick and if we heard more of that slapping of the bass and whatnot. I think it would
Sure.
benefit. Presentation.
I still give it at 8.5 because how can I say, I still like that they didn't, they still kept it real. They still kept it Cannibal Corpsey. I talk about what they could do to make it different,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe I sounded harsh, but in the end of the day, you want Cannibal Corpse out of your Cannibal Corpse, and they achieved that, And especially, I think the latest video we saw together bumped up my note. So yeah, 8.5.
All right. So my presentation is 7. I think it's mostly because I think I didn't actually see much as far as hype for this, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying it came out of left field or anything, so I thought it was. I'm not saying it was poorly marketed, but obviously they didn't market it quite as crazy as you would during like a normal situation where we don't have a virus running throughout the world. But I feel like that's also unfair to necessarily give them a failing grade because of that, because it's not in their control. And I don't blame any band during the pandemic for obviously putting a little less into the presentation of a product. If you've got
Right.
if you've got no chance of actually going out and featuring your performance as part of the presentation, then I don't blame you. That being said, I think we need to start getting a little bit more courageous and inventive with the way we present our products, because this could be something that affects and changes the climate of live performance in general going forward. Even with the vaccines, even with even if the pandemic was gone tomorrow, we'd still probably have a changed landscape for live music.
I agree so much that I'm gonna go from 8.5 to 8.
Okay. So you agree that they could have probably put a little bit more into it?
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially when I talked more, about the artwork, and also the very different tones of the two videos could have been more together, and the song titles,
Yep.
could have been more unified.
So I'm just updating the number here for you.
Okay, cool.
That's so funny. As long as we don't change anything, that's hilarious. Okay, so now this is the Corpse meter. What is it for you as far as a Cannibal Corpse album out of 10?
Man, that's what I'm not gonna change. It's an 8.5. I'm rating it a little bit lower than you as far as their whole catalog, but it's a very welcome entry from Cannibal Corpse, on the sound, on the attitude. Yeah, they didn't disappoint me on anything. We're just talking here outside the box. How can we make them better? And it's a lot that has to do with personal taste, right? But as far as like as a Cannibal Corpse album, yeah, it's up there, man. 8.5.
What exactly? Well, first of all, can I just? I know we want to go through these quick, but I just want to ask you a quick question for clarification. Where would you consider in the discography the best album, the closest to perfection that they have out there? Where would you?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna. So for me, my favorite Cannibal Corpse album are if I really like. Oh, man, there's a lot. How many? The best one.
Well, yeah, I'll make it easier for you. Just tell me where this ranks for you, real quick, off top of your head. Bottom 5, mid table, top 5.
A little bit, maybe a little bit after the top 5, like 6, 7 out of 15. Still in their tops.
Okay, all right, cool. Well,
Yeah.
that answers my question. So for me, I guess I haven't changed my mind not yet, but it's only been 3 days since it's been out, so I'm gonna keep this as it is because I want to see if this turns out the way it is currently right now.
Yeah,
it's hilarious, but I'm giving it a 10 out of 10, perfect Cannibal Corpse album.
So for you, it ranks where in the catalog, more or less. I need a definite answer. Top 5 for sure.
Sorry,
Top 3?
I played a sound effect of applause right there.
So
to me, it currently stands. Probably, I'll be honest. It's probably got a lot to do with the fact that it's fresh, it's new, with the excitement factor. It's currently sitting at a 10, but it's very likely to only ever drop as far as a 9. I love it. It's fucking great, but I have to point out that Evisceration Plague was my favorite album up until this point, and Evisceration Plague was my introduction to Cannibal Corpse.
Wow, we have a lot of similarity there. For me, Evisceration Plague was although it was not my introduction, is the first album from there that I was listening from front to back. So for me, Evisceration Plague is probably top 3 for sure. It's top 5. But my question to you is, Violence Unimagined for you, is it top 3? Is it top 5, you think? Top 3, based on your grade?
Well, given the grade, there's only probably 2 other perfect Cannibal Corpse albums.
Yeah.
And so it's in the top 3, yeah.
Evisceration Plague, shout out Stevie Ray Bob. I was listening at that with him in Malaysia in 2009. Yeah.
Who would rank a 10 in each category, in your opinion? Your rankings need to be put in relative context.
No problem.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I can say you mean in composition, production, presentation. For me, even I can say, like, for example, like Rivers of Nile.
Context. Yes, sorry.
Yeah. So Rivers of Nile, what's the fucking name? Where owls have no call my name, knows my name. I don't remember the name, but that record in contest, composition, production, presentation, the videos, as far as their catalog, as far as the death metal album, it's almost all perfect. So
it's funny because we have those separate death metal and Cannibal Corpse categories, so I'm not going to use a metal band as my definition. Definition, I would give Tommy by The Who a 10 out of 10.
But as far as their catalog and as far as rock catalog, you can say, and also a 10 out of 10.
When it comes to production, Periphery 3 would be a good example of perfect 10 out of 10 production.
Everything 10, Back in Black, AC/DC, composition, production, presentation. Yep. It's a perfect album, both inside and out. So both, when you look at just listening to it and how it's presented, the singles, the culture, even effects.
For me, for the context, as far as metal's concerned, there isn't a lot. Because metal is such a huge, diverse genre. Yeah. There isn't a lot of 10s. There's very few. There's near perfects. Like, I think Symbolic by Death would get 9s across the board, probably, for me. There's I think Iron Maiden's Power Slave would get 9s across the board for me. Trevor says Saint Anger 10 out of 10.
For me, Slaughter of the Soul by At the Gates would get pretty much 10 out of 10 in each category for me. I have a few per year. My top three death metal albums per year are probably 9 and 10s across the board.
Well, Louis, let's go. So we're going to move on here. Let's go to where does it rank out of 10 as far as death metal is concerned for you?
So the last category, that's an 8. That's an 8 out of 10. It's excellent. It's excellent. Just to give you more context, it's probably not gonna be in my It's probably not gonna be in my top 10 death metal album of the year. Even it's probably gonna make. It's probably not because I listen to a lot. It's probably not gonna be in my top 10. It's probably it would be like in my top 30, maybe my top. I'm not sure if it would make a top 20, but to me it sits around there because most my favorite albums are gonna be 9, 8.5, 9, 9.5. This 8, is just solid, but it's not something that I'm super excited.
So I also give it an 8. That being said, it's in my top. I can't say because it's only April, but it would likely, as it stands, it would be in my top 10. However, I don't want you to change your number based on that because just to clarify, that I don't listen to as much as you.
Exactly.
So I don't have as many. That's why it would probably get into my top 10 is because I don't have as many to rank as you. All right, cool. So our combined scores out of 10 on average, 8.3. We both hit 8.3.
sounds like the note it deserves.
It does.
83%.
It's very excellent album.
Yeah, excellent album. I'm gonna listen to it a lot more. Can't wait to listen to it with you also when I'm back in Canada.
So Bob asks, do we believe our rankings will go up with more listens? It could go up or go down. You never know.
For me, I listened it about let's say 7-8 times. For the past 3 listens, it's been there. I've in my mind,
I listened to it more than you. Holy shit!
Probably, yeah, because I also listen to other albums. But to me, it's in my mind was between an 8 and 8.5. Really, I couldn't decide between 8 and 8.5. And where did we finish?
8.3. If I did the math enough and went to the appropriate decimal places, it's probably 8.25, which you round up to 8.3. So, right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Feels like it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's enough. I don't think it will go up or down personally. I think I grasped it enough. And it's straightforward. It's straightforward album. You know, some albums every time you listen, you discover new things like Vitrail, right?
Yeah.
We talked about Vitrail. This is an album that you can listen 10 times, 20 times.
Well, Vitrail is an album where the production of it has grown on me. It's first few listens, I was worried and concerned with the way it was produced, but it's grown on me. So maybe the same thing will happen with this Cannibal Corpse album. Maybe it'll grow me a little bit more. We
shall see. All I know is this was really fun to do our first album review, and I hope we do another one real soon.
Yeah, I've had a really good discussion. It's actually gone on a lot longer than I thought. We've been going for an hour and 28 minutes. So we should probably start thinking about wrapping it up, I'd say.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any plugs or anything you want to say to everyone before we run off?
You know what? I'll keep the other albums I've been listening to this week for next week's topic, maybe, since I think it's more incomplete and I want to give the full pedestal. Number 1, 2, 3, gold, silver, and bronze medal to Cannibal Corpse. Great album. Fucking me.
Okay, well, I just want to give our greatest appreciations to everybody who's watched. We have 3 new followers, so just to give a quick shout out because I couldn't do it on the fly. We got Lubag87, thank you very much for the follow. Manu Fan 1994, presumably a fan of Manchester United football club. Thank you very much for the follow. And MeTomato5, I know who that is, but very, very much so still, thank you very, very much for the follow. I have been Michael, aka MTJ Disorder. That has been Phil Rock. Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we will see you next week.